I'm VJ Hamilton and welcome to the Autoimmune RESET, the place for you to learn how to thrive with autoimmune disease and feel empowered to take steps to transform your health to feel better than ever. You can start making changes today to improve your health. So with every episode, my mission is to share with you simple ways to up-level your diet and lifestyle with key learnings from my own journey reversing autoimmune disease and inspirational stories from those who have reset their autoimmune symptoms and are now thriving in life. I suffered from autoimmune disease for over 25 years and now I live symptom-free, and I wish the same for you as well. So thank you for being here and sharing this time with me. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome to this Friday 5 episode of the Autoimmune RESET podcast. I'm your host VJ Hamilton. I'm a nutritionist, scientist and expert in autoimmune disease. And today I want to explore some underlying nutrient deficiencies or out of range markers that come up on a full blood count. And this might be a test that you have done at your doctor's, and it can give you an indication of mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, why is mitochondrial dysfunction important? Well, the mitochondria are the powerhouse of your cells. They are the things that are producing energy for you on a daily basis. And when that comes to an autoimmune condition, which is a condition where there is inflammation, there is an overreactive immune response, there are potentially lots of different issues going on at the cellular level, we need to be focusing on our energy production and our mitochondrial function as much as possible. Because often when there are issues with your energy production at the cellular level, that can have a knock-on effect to the immune system, it can have a knock-on effect to different organs in the body and your vascular health as well, which is why it is so vital. And there are some markers that will show up on a routine blood test that you'd get done at your doctor's, and my clients will ordinarily send these to me. And when I'm looking through, I'm looking for any evidence of mitochondrial dysfunction, because if I see evidence of it, then I know that that is the place that we need to start and we need to address that in order for them to feel relief from their symptoms. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that I am hosting a 5-day challenge on the 2nd of September, which is called Set Yourself Up for Health Success. Because when I approach September, I always see it as the start of a new year, really. And it is a time to kind of get back on track. And I know it's not always easy. I am running these 5 sessions, which will be live, but you will also get the recording if you can't join live. And I'm just going to be taking you through the process that I went through to really make sure that I was prepared for making those changes to my health, because I know I spent many years trying lots of different things, but not approaching it in the right way. And that's what I want to be sharing with you in the challenge. So if you'd like to join that, then you can find the link in the show notes. Anyway, let's get started with today's episode. So the first marker that can be an indication of mitochondrial dysfunction is creatine kinase, which some people refer to as CK. And CK is an enzyme which is found in the heart, brain and skeletal muscle. And when the muscle is damaged, CK levels can spike. So you want to be looking out for high levels of CK in your results. So let's talk about why this gives an indication of mitochondrial dysfunction. Well, because the mitochondria are so important in energy metabolism, what can happen is if the muscle cells, and the heart is a muscle cell really as well, when the muscle cells don't produce energy efficiently, that can lead to damage of that muscle, and that ends up releasing lots of CK into the blood, and that's why you have these elevated levels. So if you have elevated CK, then you want to be considering mitochondrial dysfunction as a potential cause for that, and then you can work on your cellular health, and you can dig even deeper into what might be causing that. So looking out for elevated CK is important, and just to note that it can also be linked to other conditions as well, so it's worth getting that checked out if it is raised on your blood test results. The next one is ferritin, and I work with clients who have alopecia areata and other autoimmune conditions, but they will often come to me and tell me that their ferritin levels are low. Ferritin is a protein that helps to store iron in your body, but it is also an acute phase reactant, which means that it will increase when somebody is inflamed. Not always, but it can increase due to inflammation. So let's talk about how it relates to mitochondrial dysfunction. Well, the mitochondria rely on iron metabolism to produce energy, so particularly the production of heme and these iron sulfur clusters, which are crucial for cellular respiration. So it's the way that you produce energy at the cellular level. So if you have low levels, that could potentially indicate an iron deficiency, which is going to impair that mitochondrial function. So if you have low ferritin levels and you are suffering with an autoimmune condition or chronic fatigue, then addressing the root cause of your iron deficiency in the first place is going to really help with your symptoms. And if it is to do with lack of iron in the diet, then there is an easy tweak there to make you feel better. However, it is worth bearing in mind that elevated ferritin levels could indicate chronic inflammation. So if you find that your iron levels are generally low, but your ferritin levels are very high, then I would be looking into whether you are in a state of chronic inflammation. And that is going to affect your mitochondria as well, because increased oxidative stress, which can happen when you have high ferritin levels, can then affect the mitochondria, because when you have a lot of free radicals around the cells or inside the cells, that causes disruption. So it means that your cells can't work optimally and produce energy for you. The next marker to look at is glucose. So if you have elevated glucose levels or hyperglycemia, that can be a sign of something called insulin resistance, which is strongly linked to mitochondrial dysfunction. And insulin resistance is where your cells have stopped responding to insulin, which is absolutely essential when it comes to regulating your blood sugar. And if your cells stop responding to insulin, it means that your blood sugar is probably going to stay higher for longer, and that again can cause a lot of damage to your vascular health, to your organs, and can cause a lot of disruption at the cellular level. Mitochondria play a key role in glucose metabolism, and they help to convert glucose into ATP to produce energy. So we want to make sure that that whole system is working sufficiently and that you're able to produce energy from the food you're eating. And I often run a test which I like to call my cell health test. It's the metabolomics test, and that looks at how well you produce energy from fat and carbohydrates. And what I find in my clients who are struggling with chronic fatigue or brain fog is that they are not able to convert energy from carbohydrates at the cellular level. So they may be eating carbohydrates, they may be consuming the calories from the carbohydrates, but at the cellular level, their cells are not able to use that energy source for various reasons, and that can be linked to inflammation, it can be linked to toxicity, and you need to get to the bottom of that to help you with your fatigue symptoms. So mitochondria are not obviously functioning optimally when you have insulin resistance or issues with your glucose levels, and unfortunately it can become a vicious cycle because high glucose can lead to further damage of the mitochondria. So it is essential to be proactive with this. You don't want to get into that state of oxidative stress where it starts to affect the inside of your cells and that cellular function and your all-important DNA. So it's certainly worth getting ahead of that. So if you see raised glucose on your results, then I would certainly be looking into what might be causing that if it is not obvious from your diet. Now let's talk about lactate, because lactate is a product of anaerobic metabolism, and that means metabolism that isn't reliant on oxidation. So it's not reliant on oxygen. And that kicks in when you might not have enough oxygen available and the mitochondria can't produce enough energy for you through those aerobic pathways when you are using oxygen. So elevated lactate levels in the blood can indicate mitochondrial dysfunction because your mitochondria should have enough oxygen available. Obviously, if you are training or doing intense exercise, then it is a normal bodily function that you do start to produce lactate. And then when you start to recover, you obviously decrease the amount of lactate in the body, and that helps with the recovery and helps to bring it down. So you may have heard of lactic acid, and it's the same thing. But if you are producing a lot of lactic acid and a lot of lactate without the impact of exercise, then you need to have a look at, well, what's going on here? Why is this happening? And this is particularly relevant for conditions where mitochondrial dysfunction is known, such as mitochondrial myopathies. And you would probably know if that was an issue for you, but elevated lactate levels, especially when associated with fatigue, should certainly prompt further investigation. And last but not least, let's talk about my favourite subject, which is the red blood cells. And I should probably do a book or something about red blood cells because it's something that I'm so interested in, especially when it comes to autoimmune conditions. I know that the immune cells can tell us so much, but there is actually a lot of information that we can get from our red blood cells as well. And that is the red blood cell distribution width, which is called RDW. And red blood cell distribution width, and I'm just going to refer to it as RDW, it measures the variation in size of your red blood cells. And recent research has suggested a link between elevated RDW and mitochondrial dysfunction, which is really helpful when you're looking at your results. You want to be looking at whether you have raised RDW. And if you're listening to this today and you have some time at the weekend, dig out those test results that you've had done in the past. You might have been told that everything is fine, and have a look through them. Is anything very close to the reference range and need further investigation? And that's what I do with my clients. They may do functional testing with me, but I'm also looking at the tests that they've had done with the doctors because it gives me so much insight. The mitochondria are absolutely critical maturation of red blood cells. And if mitochondria are dysfunctional, then that can lead to the abnormal production of red blood cells, which is why this marker is important. And elevated RDW has been associated with various conditions, including cardiovascular disease and chronic inflammation. So you don't want to ignore it if it is elevated on your blood test results. So as you can see, there are many different ways that you can look into mitochondrial dysfunction. I have the cell health test that I use with my clients, and that gives me a lot of insight into what is happening at the cellular level, and it looks specifically at mitochondrial dysfunction. But there are these other markers that are going to give us insight as well. And when it comes to your own health empowerment and getting to know your body better, understanding these markers can make a huge difference, and it can keep you on track with your health as well. So every time you're seeing your doctor or every time you're getting one of these tests done, it's just worth looking through them. And that's what I did before I became a nutritionist. I was seeing the doctor and going through the diagnosis process, and I was looking through my own results, and I was probably using Dr. Google a bit too often, but then I started training in nutritional therapy, and I was already quite aware of a lot of these markers because I'd done my own research. And, you know, I was lucky that I had researched a lot when I was at university and when I did my dissertation. So I had access to various platforms like PubMed and where all the research is, but there's lots of research out there that you can access yourself as well. But if you have any questions about this that you would like to ask me, then feel free to pop over to my Instagram account, which is at the Autoimmunity Nutritionist. I also have my free community, the Autoimmune Forum, and you can ask questions over there as well, because I realize there is a lot here and you might have seen one of these markers raised on your blood test and you want to find out more about that. Well, feel free to ask me a question about it, because I find this area so interesting, and I'm learning all the time as well, and I just love to share that with you. So if you have any questions, then let me know. If not, have a fantastic weekend and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Autoimmune Reset. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you liked it, I would hugely appreciate a review on iTunes, as it helps me understand what you like about the podcast and to help share the information with more people. I'm excited to speak to you next time, and remember, you have the power to take the reins on your health. So keep the faith and celebrate the small wins. Until next time.